Hello, in this video I will explain in simple language the legal ways for religious officials to live and work in the United States. From the R-1 temporary religious worker visa to the EB-4 permanent residence pathway, including who is eligible, what documents are required, common mistakes in applications, and some lesser-known rules, all will be covered step by step with a clear flow. My goal is to organize the scattered information and leave you with an easy-to-follow roadmap. First, the eligibility criteria, then the application process and special cases. Finally, a practical next steps list. A quick note, this content is not legal advice. Be sure to check current official sources and consult an immigration attorney if necessary. If you're ready, let's begin. First, who is considered a religious worker, and what are the basic eligibility requirements? The U.S. immigration laws define a special category for religious workers. There are specific, clear requirements to qualify for this category. First, you must be a member of an official religious denomination. That is, the institution you are applying to must be a recognized and established faith community. Second, you must demonstrate at least 2 years of full-time experience. This experience can be as a minister, in a religious profession, or within a religious duty. In short, you need to document that you have been regularly serving the faith community. Third, you must prove that your intention is to work in a religious position in America. This is usually shown with a job offer letter from the sponsoring religious organization. To support these 3 key points in your application, you should submit official letters from your affiliated organization, documents showing your job description and service history, documents establishing your relationship with the sponsoring organization. In summary, your identity, service history, and future plans should all be included as a comprehensive package. One of the most important distinctions in the application process is whether you are officially appointed as a religious leader, because the rules vary accordingly. If you are a religious leader, meaning a spiritual guide, priest, pastor, imam, or similarly officially appointed, the most important documents required from you are your appointment papers and a job offer letter awaiting you. That is, the process is clearer and somewhat easier. But if you fall into the category of religious personnel, meaning someone working in a religious institution, providing education, serving the community, but not officially appointed to the clergy, the conditions are stricter. In this case, you need to provide detailed proof that you have served continuously for at least 2 years after the age of 14. Additionally, Congress may set deadlines, sunset dates, for this category from time to time. In summary, the process for religious leaders relies more on appointment documents and a job offer. For religious personnel, it is essential to document 2 years of service experience. U.S. immigration laws define a special category for religious workers. There are 2 main pathways for religious workers to enter the United States: temporary stay and permanent residence. Let's explain these with some everyday examples to clarify. The first is the R-1 visa. Think of it as a guest work permit. It grants you the right to stay in the U.S. for up to 5 years and perform your religious duties. But this visa is temporary. Like being a guest, there is a specific period, and at the end, your stay expires. For example, a church invites you to work full-time, give theology classes, or lead worship services. The R-1 visa is exactly for this purpose. Extensions can be made if desired, but fundamentally, it is based on the idea of work here for a certain period, then return. Secondly, the EB-4 visa. This is the path to permanent residence, commonly known as the green card. Thanks to EB-4, you are no longer a visitor, but a resident. This means you are entitled not only to perform religious duties, but also to establish your life in America. The conditions here are more stringent. You must prove that you have worked full-time in religious activities for at least 2 years within the last 5 years. Additionally, there must be a religious organization offering you a permanent job. You can think of it like this: R1 visa going to America to serve for a few years and gain experience. EB-4 visa, building your life there, renting a house, educating children, living permanently. For example, consider a priest. He has been serving at a church in Turkey for 5 years. A church in America invites him to serve. He first goes with an R-1 visa, serving for a few years. Ve Endalas'ın derneğini tamamlamakta EB-4. Or another example, an imam or instructor has worked at a religious educational institution for at least 1 yıldır. An organization in the US offers him a long-term position. If he can prove his 2 years with documentation, he can apply directly for the EB-4 pathway and obtain a green card. In short, for short-term service, you use the R-1 visa, and for establishing a long-term life, you use the EB-4 pathway. The first step to obtain a residence or visa as a religious worker in the United States is to fill out the application form called Form I-360. This form is essentially your official declaration to the government that you qualify as a religious worker in this category. But of course, filling out the form alone is not enough. You need to submit many supporting documents. The key point here is, each document should be considered as evidence supporting your claim. 1. Religious denomination or organization document. First, you must prove that the religious community you belong to is a genuine and recognized denomination. This is usually done with a charter, regulation, or registration document. Example, suppose you are affiliated with a church in Turkey. The church's official charter or the registration document of its branch in the US should be included with your application. 2. 2-year service record. Before applying, you must demonstrate that you have provided religious services for at least 2 years. This can be proven with pay stubs, salary receipts, school records, or official letters from the organization. Example, imagine a mom who has been serving at the same mosque since 2019. A signed letter from the mosque management and salary slips clearly prove this. 3. Job offer letter, a letter from the institution in the US where you will be working, describing your duties and salary, is required. This letter is very important because USCIS wants to be sure that you will indeed work in the US. Example, a church states, person X will serve 40 hours a week with the following duties and will be provided with a monthly salary and accommodation. 4. Religious appointment document for clergy only. If you are officially appointed as a religious leader, priest, pastor, imam, etc., you must submit your appointment/license document. When all these documents are gathered, USCIS will see that you truly qualify for this category. You can think of the application process as similar to a university application. The form is your application letter. The documents are your transcripts, references, and evidence that will secure your acceptance. And remember, USCIS reviews these documents very carefully. A small omission or incorrect information can prolong the process for months. That's why it is very important to submit complete, accurate, and organized documents. There are some special rules during applications that many people overlook but actually directly affect the process. Those who proceed without knowing these often receive a rejection or their applications are delayed for months or even years. Age and service requirement. There is a very clear rule in the American immigration system. Religious services performed before the age of 14 are not considered valid for the application. In other words, you may have volunteered at a place of worship as a child, but this period is not recognized as official service. Let's consider an example. Suppose you volunteered at a church or mosque starting at age 12. While this period is very valuable for your religious life, it is not accepted in official documents. USCIS only considers at least 2 years of service performed after the age of 14. If you are currently 18, then your services starting at 16 are counted, and you cannot apply until you complete a total of 2 years. RFRA exemptions. The second special situation is exemptions under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA. This law tells you, if any visa requirement seriously hinders you from fulfilling your religious duties, you can request to be exempted from that requirement. For example, if your religious community's beliefs prohibit you from signing certain documents, you might normally be denied your application for not submitting that document. However, by requesting an exception under RFRA, you can state, "This situation restricts my religious practice." This way, USCIS can consider your case separately and expedite the process in your favor. Document verification. Another important point is the verification of documents. USCIS does not only review the documents you submit, but also investigates their validity. That is, it checks whether a letter received from an institution was indeed issued by that institution, whether signatures are authentic, and whether pay stubs match official records. Even a small inconsistency can lead to the denial of the application. In short, accurately calculating the age limit, documenting your religious service history, and being aware of special rights such as RFRA are critical for the smooth progress of the process. The most well-known paths for religious officials in America are the R-1 and EB for visas. However, these two routes may not always suit everyone's situation. This is where some alternative options and specific considerations come into play. B1 or B2 visa for short-term religious activities if you plan to stay in America for a limited time only to organize a religious event or to give sermons as a guest. Visitor visas can be used. For example, if you're a speaker at a one-week religious conference or providing short-term guidance at a summer camp, a B1 visa may suffice. This visa grants you temporary entry, but does not provide permanent work rights. Applying on your own. In some cases, an individual holds an autonomous leadership role within the organization they belong to. In such a situation, submitting an application independently of the organization, known as a self-petition, may be considered. For example, if you are a representative of a large religious order abroad and the community has authorized you alone, you may have the right to apply independently. Employer sponsorship. One of the most common methods is employer sponsorship. If your church, mosque, or religious organization offers you an official job offer in the United States, your application will proceed directly through the employer. The employer submits the documents to USCIS on your behalf. Salary and payment documents. There is an important detail here. If your salary is paid by an institution abroad, this must be clearly indicated in the documents. If your salary is paid by an institution in the United States, then all the details should be specified separately. In the instructions for Form I-360, it is required to list all items such as salary, fringe benefits, housing assistance, or per diem individually. Transparency is very important at this point because even the slightest omission can undermine the credibility of the application. RFRA exceptions, RFRA, may also come into play in alternative pathways. For example, if you are serving in a community that uses a different support model instead of a salary certificate, you can request an exemption by proving that it is related to your religious practices. This can prevent the rejection of your application. In short, although R1 and EB are the most well-known visas, there are alternative pathways such as visitor visas for short-term assignments, independent applications from the institution, or employer sponsorship. In all cases, having complete, transparent, and truthful documents is the most critical element of the process. So far, we have discussed the pathways to residence in the United States for religious officials. To summarize, first, gather documentation of your religious service experience of at least 2 years. Request an official certificate from your religious denomination. Obtain a job offer letter from the institution in the United States detailing your duties and salary. And submit all of these to USCIS with Form I-360. Every faith journey is unique. Your path may also be different, but these steps provide a reliable framework to show you where to start. I would like to emphasize this. As World Next Step, we do not provide this service directly. Our goal is to provide you with information and clarify how the process works. However, on our website, you can find a list of institutions and professionals operating in this field. In other words, if you are looking for a reliable consultant or institution, you can take the first step by visiting our website. Visit our website for more information. Subscribe to our channel and follow us to stay updated with new videos. This way, you can easily access current content, expert lists, and guides. Remember, accurate information leads to the right steps. Proceed on your new life journey with reliable sources.